Hello.
Anandi, hello.
Uh, Hello.
Hello, Suavji. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Ah. So we'll start the session
Yeah.
after 2 minutes. Hmm.
Yeah. Sure.
Let students have join. Then we'll start.
चलिए गेम खत्म होने का दम जाते हैं, ठीक है। हम एक मीटिंग में है और 10 मिनट का ब्रेक था चलने के लिए। राइट में गया। अरे यार भाई मेरा वीडियो
Okay, so good afternoon, one and all present here. Already 25 participants are joined. We'll start. Later they will join. So we'll stick
Yeah,
on
good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good.
So let me introduce to our resource person. Then we'll start the session. Just a minute. Students are joining.
Great.
Yes. So let me introduce to our resource person, Dr. Shantipriya Parida is going to take this session. Dr. Parida is a globally recognized AI researcher and founder of the Odia Generative AI Initiative. I currently serve as the senior AI scientist at AMD Shiloh, Finland, where he works on the NLP, this LLM models, generative AI, multimodal AI, and deep learning. So as the founder of Odia GNI, he has led several pioneering initiatives for Odia language, including the development of open source dataset, instruction tuned LLMs, speech resources, and multilingual AI technology for low resource languages. So under his leadership, Odia GNI has released some of the first large language models and AI resources dedicated to the Odia language especially. So he's also working in different languages also, not for Odia, but especially for the Odia languages, he has dedicated many resources so that any researcher wants to work on the Odia language, you can find the data set. So Dr. Parida has authored numerous research publications in NLP, machine translation, multimodal AI, generative AI, and deep learning also. Actively promotes this open community-driven AI research for Indian languages. So now I'll request Dr. Parida to take the session. Thank you very much accepting our invitation, and you can start the session now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Das. So, I think I have 1.5 hour, I believe, timing. So
Yes.
yeah. So let me share my screen. So is my screen visible?
Yes. Visible.
Okay. Thank you. So,
Make it full screen, otherwise.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. I think it is maybe in Finland it is morning. In India, I think it will be afternoon, and other places. I don't know about the time zone where people have joined, but thank you all for joining the session, and thank you, Professor Das, for inviting me. And this is the topic, like which I think very much aligned with this workshop. So mainly we are talking about LLMs for all. building inclusive models for low resource languages. So now I think generative AI and LLMs is nothing new. Everybody know about our day-to-day life. They are using more or less. Everybody, ChatGPT or other tools for generating image, or maybe students for doing some assignment. So everybody, I think, a bit of their life they are using generative AI and LLMs. But our focus is mostly about how these tools and technologies can be reached to all. All means for all the community, because if you cannot access this technology in your own language or in your for example in your own community, or for your own need in terms of your own language, which can able to understand your own culture, then I think this technology is still not yet reached to all. And that is the mainly the focus area. And mostly I'll talk about this multilingual, like why this multilingual LLMs matter. Like for example, now if you have observed many countries or many in different places, mostly they are focusing on sovereignty AI, where they everybody try to build LLMs on their own language, which can understand their own culture and all the related information to that particular geographical region. So that is one of the recent research area, and many people are working on this. But what is the major challenges, like why it is not yet reached to all, and what challenges are facing like building multilingual LLMs? And maybe I'll provide two case studies, one for Odia, like where we started earlier, and also we worked for another Nordic language called Sami. Like it is also very ultra low resource language, just around 30,000 speaker speak that language, and how we are able to build LLMs for that. So that will be case studies. So yeah, let me start. But mostly these sessions, if it is mostly in interactive way, where we used to ask participant about how much they know about these things to get them ideas. But maybe yeah, you can feel free to in chat you can put paste it, no problem, I can check later. But like some of the questions for you, like if you know, you can answer it in chat, that is fine. Otherwise I'll explain it. So mostly if you know first, like how many languages are spoken in the world. So like whether it is 100 or 1000, sorry, 1000 or 7000. So if you know, you can type it like. And second question, like whether I used to ask do you think can AI help to preserve these endangered languages? Can we able to build some tools and technologies which really help to preserve? So maybe you can agree yes or no, or partially. And third question is like, for example, why do multilingual LLM struggle with low resource languages? What is the major challenges we are facing? Is it due to limited training data, or is it due to poor digital presence? That means digitally resources are not available, or maybe a tokenization challenge. Tokenization, like for example, if you know, uh, generally in English, it is using Latin script. The way you count the tokens. Tokens means it is like the the sub unit of any sentence, just like you can consider as word as a token. So for example, the way we are counting the tokens for Latin script, or maybe some Indic script, or maybe some other language scripts, so whether it is same or not, or is it really challenges like the tokenizations are not available, or maybe the lack of benchmark. Like once you train the model, how will you benchmark? Because now if you consider, most of the benchmarks are in English. So if you try to evaluate, if you build a model, and when you try to evaluate a model, how it performs, maybe that is also a challenge, in for other languages. So what do you think, like what are the major challenges. So coming coming to some more questions are there, but yeah, maybe I'll just ask you, and whichever you know, you can type it your opinion. That will be fine. And what happens when a language has very little digital data? So what do you think? Like, for example, if we have a language which have very limited amount of digital data, so is it like then that language we cannot get AI support, or building this technology is a challenge, or maybe poor translation quality, you cannot build that translation systems? Because if you look into translation systems also, it also support limited languages. It's not for all languages. Like if you go for any low resource language and you want to translate from English to that language, you won't get any translation systems, or maybe limited accessibility. You cannot access everywhere all kind of tools and technologies, or risk of exclusion from AI systems. Like many of these languages, maybe you cannot get any AI systems due to limited amount of data. And question 5 is like, should low resource languages have dedicated LLMs? So what do you think? Like, for example, when you have a when you have very low resource uh, any low resource languages, so shall we provide or shall we build a dedicated LLM for that particular language, or which we call like language specific models, or like generally nowadays we are building multilingual models where it supports a bunch of language, or a set of languages. That one will be better. Or maybe some hybrid approach means maybe we can train our model like with all different set of languages, and we can also try to do some kind of continuous pre-training, or maybe some fine tuning. So what could be the best approach? And question 6 is about what to truly inclusive AI looks in future. Like in future, what do you think about the future should look like when you talk about inclusive AI? That means whether this AI support all languages, or maybe it will be for better cultural understanding, or accessible education, to healthcare, or preservation of linguistic diversity. So what do you think? So these are like some of the questions. I think maybe we cannot discuss all with a participant, but yeah, if we have some time, we can discuss. But yeah, feel free to provide your opinion and chat whether we can discuss. Generally, when we start discussing, it will be take some time, and uh, if we have some time, we can definitely discuss on those topics. So first is like uh, as I said, like why this multilingual LLMs matter. Like for example, uh, uh, if really like really we need to consider this topic, like that we should focus for low resource language. And if you see like this workshop, like more mainly focus about low resource language, like how to build this kind of technology, whether it is building some NLP technologies or LLM based technology, then why we should focus on this. So that is the first thing. And if you look into multilingual LLMs, I think before multilingual LLMs we discuss, maybe a little bit we'll discuss about the languages. So I think already some dedicated session what I know is there for languages, and some linguists maybe give you more idea. But as a like a computational expert, or generative AI expert, maybe we can go through a little bit about know the languages, like why it really matters. So maybe I start with a old news. I think it is in Feb 17 2010. Maybe it is a old news, but really it matters. For example, if you know, like we have many languages, like the person born and person dies. So if you look into also these languages dies. So languages dies means if you look into the statistics, like every 2 weeks you'll find some languages are dying, because that will be like based on the UNESCO report. They claims that okay, estimates that one language disappears every 2 weeks, because in world lot of languages are there, but if you look into the way the we are doing the digitization or the available of the resources, that is very limited. For example, in this case, I think during the I think this is I think during a tsunami which was appeared during that time. I think one person lived in India's this Andaman Iceland. That is Iceland in India, where one person is there, one lady, if you can see. So she knew one language, and nobody knows. And one day she died, and nobody and with her, the language also died, because nobody know that language, and there was not such digitization appears. And maybe so if you look into, like, this is not the one case. Like, if you consider or if you check in internet, you will find many languages are there, and they are disappearing very fast. And mostly that's the reason, UNESCO and other organizations, they are do some categorize of languages. Those falls into endangered languages, or they call these languages like maybe means endangered categories, and where we'll found a very limited amount of data, or we generally call them like ultra low resource languages, like where very limited amount of data is available. So, and we try to preserve those languages, because why we want to preserve, because when we preserve the language, okay, we are preserving the culture, their history, their identity, and their indigenous knowledge. So many things are there, and if we try to preserve, okay, all these things can be there. Otherwise, maybe if we look into the world, maybe it will be only dominated by a few high research languages, and all the language tools and technologies will be available only in those. And that is not the case. Like, now everybody wants to communicate, or they want to available all the technology in their own language, because everybody is not educated. For example, if a person doesn't know English, and if say that okay, you force him to use ChatGPT, then that ChatGPT may not be much useful for him, because neither he can communicate. But maybe we can try to provide some kind of tools or technology, maybe speech-based technologies, or some kind of keyboard, or where he can communicate in his or her own language. Then that one will be really, you'll get the benefit of AI. So as I said, if you look into this particular graph, uh, uh, as I said, more than 7,000 languages are available in the world, and out of 7,000 languages, so you will find around 3,000 languages are in endangered list. That means if you look into like how fast, or how really the issue is, how critical the issue is when we are talking about these endangered languages. And if you look into, these are also if you see into that, it will be based on the number of speakers, like how many speakers are speaking that language. We are categorizing. So if you look into maybe 1431 languages with fewer than 1000 speakers. And if you look into like a number of speakers are less, and if there will be no sincere effort going on to preserve these languages, maybe year by year, maybe next year, or maybe after after a few months, or some days, the list, many of these languages are going to extinct. So that is the case, but how we can do it, like for example, as a researcher, or uh, uh, when we say like, okay, we are building technologies, then also we can contribute contribute it. Like as I said that okay, everybody like has their own contribution as a linguist. They are trying to do it, or maybe other resources. They are also trying to preserve this language. And also same thing like as a technology or a researcher, we can also do it. So if you look into, I think already I have provided the list of languages. Like if you see different languages spoken across the world, like this will be from the ethnologist.com. So as I said, more than 7,000 languages are there. But when we are talking about the resources, so for example, whether digitized resources or the content is available. So for example, if we consider a wiki as a very good resource, like where most of the data are available for different languages. But still, if you look into the case is not the true, or case is really challenging, because if you look into Wikipedia, it supports around 313 languages. Maybe it will be, if it is little bit increase, I'm not sure. But okay, but if you are considering the whole languages list from 7,000 to around 300, I think still the gap is very far. Like for example, like only that means we are able to digitize only few languages. And that too, like if you consider the content of many languages, still the contents are very less. Like for example, I know, like for example, now there are very good initiatives and very good researchers. They are dedicatedly trying to add content in that language. For example, like Odia Wiki, many dedicated researcher and resource persons, they are trying to add content every day. So also they are promoting like for other languages. But still it need to be more. Like for example, till the digitization has to be grow, then only you can able to get. And because once you have the resources, then you can build some kind of technologies. So that is the like the major motivation. Like we try to build many of the tools, technologies and resources. Particularly we are resources, and we are in collaboration with different organizations to build languages. Maybe Professor Das also associated with us, like where we are trying to build languages. For example, we released the ODI tree bank, which was not available earlier, and this is the first time. But still the size is less. Like for example, although we have increased the number of sentences. Initially we tried with 100 sentences, then maybe now it is around 500 sentences, and we are trying to increase. But still I think it needs more volunteers and more resources to join this kind of initiative to building resources. So whether you are from any of these countries, so you can look around, like for example in your language, like what kind of resources are there, and where it is lacking, and you can try to focus on. For example, if you are working in LLMs or generative AI, yeah, you can focus on, like for example in your language, whether such resources are available or not. If it is not, then how we can build it. And maybe some of the things we can discuss in the use cases, which can help you to understand like how to build these resources. So, and already we have discussed, like if you consider the multilinguality as a like a in a broader scale. If you think, like for example, the 90% of 90% of all languages are low resource. That means there is lot of scope, because it is not it resources are available for many languages, and that is really challenging for building any kind of tools. And mostly if you look into this LLMs space, it will be dominated by English or maybe some few high resource languages it supports. And due to that, if you look into, there is a lot of impact gap. Like for example, if you want to build some kind of technologies in education or healthcare or government services, you will face really the problems. And the major risk, like the raw research language, actually the risk of being excluded from the AI ecosystems, because until we have the resources, people means everybody complain that okay, we want to build some technology but we don't have adequate resources. And then that's the reason we are not able to build any kind of AI based technologies. And there is a risk that okay, those will be excluded. Or we can like nowadays, if you see, okay, they say that okay, this technology is only available for these languages, or only these languages are supported. So that is a major risk. But these multilingual LLMs, which the focus of this presentation, so they can help to preserve these languages, and they can also help to preserve the culture, the knowledge, the linguistic diversity. So that is like the motivation, like for example why we want to do. And the next step is like for example, okay, we know like this is a really an important topic, and everybody should focus on. The next question is like how we can build it. For example, okay, we understand the situation, understand the problems, or for example you ask that, okay, I am really interested to build this kind of resources in my own language, but question is like how I can build. So that I think we can discuss. So although we have built many things, but maybe I can give you some use cases from where we started, particularly for multilingual LLMs, because uh, this the scope of this presentation is really mostly to LLMs, although we build many resources in for different NLP technologies. So so before starting, like maybe I'll just give you an overview, like what are the real challenges uh, in multilingual LLMs. So first I think everybody agree, like the limited high quality multilingual data set. So data set is a major challenge. So for example, if you look into, everybody really struggles if you want to build technology. For example, like in Indic languages, you want to build in Indic languages, you want to build some LLMs. Then first thing is like, okay, where for example if you go for fine tuning, where you can get a high quality fine tuning data set. Like for example, okay, we are not high quality means why we are mentioning high quality, because nowadays also people due to lack of this data set, people are doing trying to do some kind of translation. But if you look into the translation, actually the translation is not the real solution, because in terms of translation actually it introduces lot of noise. And for example, and mostly these data set are like which are really built for English or something, I think they uh, those are like those are not very much applicable for in your language in your language, because the domain knowledge is not there. Like for example, if somebody is trying to build, maybe the LLM should understand their culture, or all the related related uh, areas of that particular language. So that is not the possible. And the translation also, I think we faced a lot of issues like everybody also faced. So that is not the case. So first is the like of sorry, the high quality multilingual data set, whether you are doing for pre-training, or do you are doing for fine tuning, or you are doing some kind of reasoning based LLM. So whatever you do, or maybe some agent. So first is that high quality data. So that is the major challenge. And second is like the lack of digital and annotated resources. So that is also the case. Like for example, you cannot get for many of these languages. And also earlier I explained about the tokenization issues, because this tokenization is across diverse script, because the tokenizer, like for example in your language, the tokenization, how the tokenization or the count, it is not the same for the Latin script. So that is also another challenge. And also like the code mixing and dialect variation. So that is very much applicable like for Indic and other many languages, because when code mixing, like every day, like if you look into Indic languages, at least you see there will be three languages will be mixed. Code mix, I think everybody knows. Like for example, when for example generally when we are speaking in Odia, maybe sometimes we just mix Odia with English, or sometimes we mix Odia with Hindi. So that is quite common, like for Indic languages. So same for like for example other Indic languages, like people generally mix English or Hindi. So that is there. And also the dialect. So dialect, I think dialect variation is like for example, if you just go from one place to other, okay, the way people speak is different. Maybe the written script is same, for example, like in Odia, like for example, when you speak Odia, but if we go to Sambalpuri, maybe that will be Sambalpur, or maybe Balesur, or maybe Koraput. So it will be different location. Like the way people speak, the dialect is different. But the question is like that: why we should consider this? Because if you want to build some technologies, so for example, if you ask to LLMs to write a poem in maybe in Sambalpuri. Maybe may not understand the complete or Sambalpuri dialect very well. If it cannot understand, then how it can able to build those? So that is the case, because now we are okay. Now we only consider okay Odia, but what about like the other dialect? So that also we need to consider, or we need to include. And weak cultural and contextual understanding, so that is already I explained. Like for example, the culture or the contextual understanding, that is also a major challenges. And also like as I said about the benchmarking, that is one real challenge. Like where you will get the benchmark data set. So for example, like when we are trying to do some kind of technologies for OCR, so we are trying to find out like whether a good benchmarking data set for OCR is available or not, or similar for speech. So anything you want to build, also you need some benchmark. So those I think mostly it's not available. So like for example, people just for the time being they just try to translate the same benchmarking to their language, but that is not the good solution, I feel. So it is also required to build such kind of benchmarks. And when we say like this translation based methods, I think they really introduce bias, and sometimes this meaning is lost. So that is not a good approach. And also about the safety, toxicity, or hallucination evaluation, so that is also there will be no there will be no appropriate methods are available. So that is also a challenge. So if you look into, I think these are the major challenges for multilingual LLMs. So okay, so this work is a bit old, I think, but what I try to say, like maybe we can focus on the approach, like why we tried. For example, how we what means what is the motivation, and how we did it. But maybe other now I think if you look into in our case also, we build many LLMs after that, but maybe this is the first case, so it will be useful. So this is like we try to build a fine-tuned model in Odia. But if you for Odia language, I think maybe I'll just give some overview about the Indic languages before start. So if you look into like Indic languages, so there will be majorly like the four language family: Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Austroasiatic, or Sino-Tibetan. So if you look into all the languages, so they falls under these language families. And mostly like in India, we have like 22 scheduled languages, although many more languages are available, but 22 is are scheduled. And if you look into Indic languages, so eight languages of India, like they comes under top 20 languages in the world, like in terms of number of speakers, and 30 languages with more than 1 million speaker. And we have 14 major scripts, out of which 12 originated from the Brahmic. So if you look into Indian context, actually it is very diverse. And so if somebody try to build, then I think he has to consider all these things. Like for example, like what is my script, like what will be the how I can build my means own tokenizer, or how I can do it. Or if I want to build some kind of multilingual LLMs, and which all languages I can include. For example, from whether I can for example, if somebody Odia, we can say that okay, Odia, Bengali, maybe they are belongs to the same language family. That means if I can mix other Odia with Bengali data, then it may helps the LLM. So those things actually you need to understand the language family. And why we need, mostly if you look into the usage, so this is a bit old, like around 2011 to 2021. So if you look into, I think this, the trend is keep on going. So if you look into the usage of Indic languages, so that means this is a simple comparison of how much we are in India, like people are using English and other Indic languages over the internet. So if you look into like the trend, so trend is like, for example, if you look into Indic languages, like the trend is growing. That means people are more and more they are trying to use in their own language. So that means I think there is a lot of scope or lot of demand for available or building the tools and technologies in their language. And the major challenges, like for Indic languages, it is more or less same. Like for example, the data already we discussed, because when we are talking about Odia also, like that was the major challenge for us. Like for example, where we get this data, like for example, okay, when we started, like we said that okay, we'll try to maybe fine tune. Let's start with fine tune model, but first thing is like where we'll get this data set or instruction set in Odia. So that is the major challenge. Second is like that what kind of tokenizer we'll use, and shall we, like for example, uh, like for in Indic, like for example, what will be the dialects, like for example, shall we only consider like the standard Odia, or for example we can consider other dialects, so which is like the similar challenge. And also like due to the diverse language family or local languages, so these are like sorry, localization. So these are the major challenges exist for Indic LLM. So if somebody want to build any LLM, so they have to consider this. And this is, I think, same for all the languages, including Odia, like all the Indic languages. So when we started, like for example, I think this is many times I've said, when this is the during the period like when the ChatGPT came, and people are curious to know how it support the ChatGPT for ChatGPT support for their languages. So I think when I tried, like initially I was trying to just curious to know, like for example, how it supports. So I think this is not the case now. The case has been changed, and many things have been supported now. So, but initially when I tried to ask ChatGPT, like for example, a simple example, I tried, okay, can you explain me the recipe of a sweet dish Odia, which is called rasgulla? Like, uh, so if you look into the answers or the response, actually, uh, this is not what I expect, because it is completely means it is a bit broken and irrelevant. Like this is not the one case. Like for example, I tried with many such queries, like about different recipes or different geographical regions, or maybe about different personalities or different things about particularly for Odia, like whether this model understand. But most, it is like a really, it is a disappointing, because it was not really supporting. So then okay, we think that okay, yeah, how can we do something, like can we try or build something from our own? I think this is the case, like I'm talking about maybe 3 years back, when just ChatGPT started, and it was performing very poor for Odia language. Then okay, we said okay, let start with some fine tuning. But at that time actually it was completely new. We didn't know like how to fine tune, how to collect the data, then what kind of uh, what kind of resources are required to build the technology, and what framework we'll use. So everything was completely new, but we said okay, let's try. So what we tried, because in our case, like the one of the major challenge was that okay, why it is not able to understand our culture, like our culture or our context, like for example our recipes, our for example our personal means famous personalities, or about our location. So for that actually what we said, okay, let's first build a domain knowledge instruction set where it can really understand. Like for example, we'll build a instruction set considering all this kind of categories. So there actually first we tried with building a large ODI instruction set. So for domain knowledge data set, what we tried, like for example, we try to collect data from different topics, like for example, recipes or historical places, temples, some arithmetic, health, geography, art and culture, famous Odia poets, writer, or political leaders. So we try to collect all this information because these are actually already there. Maybe some are in internet, some are in wiki, many are there. But the challenge is like, okay, how to collect this and make it in instruction set format. So that actually we tried. And also because this much data is not only enough, so what we tried, like we build around 10,000 or 10K data instruction set we build by our own. And also we took some of the earlier instruction set, which was like alpaca or dolly. That time it was famous GPT role style, and we just translate and evaluated it. So these things actually we didn't do manually. We built some tools where tools, like for example, if you provide you can extract text and from the internet, for example, wiki or some page, and if you provide, and it can also frame you some of the queries and frame you like in instruction set format the data. So that actually we try to build. And mostly like uh, for the data, I think already it was around 180K, but our major contribution is in this 10K, because this 10K is mostly related to ODI and this understanding the domain knowledge data set. So that we build. And then we try to do a fine tuning. That time I think Llama was a very famous model. So we just took a Llama to 7B models, and we just trained for around, I think, 7 epochs we tried. And initially actually we didn't spend much because we have limited resources. But we are able to like fine tune the models. And the model fine tuning, I think this is the training hyperparameters what we used. So those are like nothing new, because those are like standard hyperparameters what we used. And then okay, once the model is there, like mainly next was the evaluation. Like for example, how we can evaluate the models, because that time there was not so much like benchmarks are available completely in ODI. So what we did, like we try to translate, like for example, some of the benchmark, and also we try to evaluate it based on some popular matrices like a rose or blue score. But mostly we focus on the human evaluation metrics. Like human evaluation metrics, like for example, we try to provide the questions and we are getting the response. And also we try to ask like the human annotator, not annotator, like our resources, like who are doing, like how you try to evaluate it. Like for example, how good or bad it is. Like for example, whether it is how good it is in the fluency, or whether it is really truth, because we know like it is already fine tuned on the domain knowledge. So whether the same questions we asked to ChatGPT and same questions we asked to our fine-tuned models, and then we try to evaluate it. So that will be like some we did automatic, and some like we try to do by human evaluation. So as I said, okay, same questions like we just ask to ChatGPT. For example, we'll ask some questions. Already, I think we have the English versions is also available, and we just try to ask ChatGPT versus our model, and we just have a comparison. And yeah, the good thing what we found, like although like sometimes ChatGPT is also provided better answer, but also we found, like for example, when we are talking about this domain knowledge, most of the times our model perform better, because the fine-tuned model has already really understood the domain knowledge and it is able to answer it really well. And that is, I think, that's the thing like which earlier interested to know that okay, whether if you give more knowledge to the model, whether it is able to understand your local context or not. So that, I think, the initial approach, I think that is a but after that actually we didn't stop. Like after that we tried for pre-training model, instruction tuning, reasoning based models, and many we have released. If somebody is interested, they can also go and check the Odia Gen website where we publish those models and the data set. But that is the very fast. So for example, uh, when we didn't know like exactly how to start, and if you look the models, it is really demonstrated a strong performance in arithmetic related questions, maybe it is in toxicity detection, understanding of the grammar of Odia language. Sometimes it struggles to distinguish between the classes in classification task because we tried with different tasks. So it really struggled there. And also the model also faced some challenges in generating long answers. Whether ChatGPT was much better, and or explanation due to constraint, maybe due to the token limitations, because we due to resources we didn't provided a very long context window size. And yeah, the model is still available, and anybody can go and check. So this is like just a case, like as I said about the fine tuning, but you can do similarly. For example, after that we release pre-trained models, we build a data set of around 300 million tokens for Odia, or maybe for Hindi we also released another data set, I think more than 1 billion tokens. So many such data set we build, and we build to pre-training as well. But as I said, like this is just a way like how we can do. As for the we have time constraint, I'll not go for pre-training models or reasoning based models, but this is for just a use case. And as I said, this is like after this actually we knew exactly like how to build this model. And the second second use case is more talking about completely different language. And so this second language is called Sami language. So Sami, if you look into, this is a language spoken in Norway, and there is a this is considered as a definitely endangered category language by UNESCO, because they are all very few speakers, around 30,000 speakers worldwide. And they have also many dialects. They have around 10 Sami dialects are there, but they have very less number of speakers. And mostly this language is coming to a different language family. So this will be comes Uralic language family. And this language is little bit similar, close to Finnish, I can say, Finnish language. But it's a very what you can call it, it's a, limited number of speaker this language. So how I involved is like, for example, after we release for Odia, like even many people are just interested to know like how to build LLMs for very low resource language where they have a very limited amount of data. And as Professor Dilip Prasad, I think he's working in EYT Norway. So he had contacted me like asking like can we collaborate on for a low resource language, because he said okay, already you guys have built for Odia, like can you share your knowledge, or maybe how you are able to build it, can we similar try for Sami? I said okay, no problem, because it's like anyway we are doing research or building language for different languages. So although I for Odia, like we are mostly focusing for Odia, but I think we build for many languages including African language. I think the first for Hausa and many other African languages. Even for many low resource language, we have built similar language resources. So that is I think a good thing. Like it's like once you build for your language, you can share the knowledge, and that can be help to building resources for other languages. So here actually the main challenge was the data, because data was very limited. So we have included some linguists, and and also they try to collect. So mostly the data set was collected from the available resources, like because they don't have much data set, so they try to collect it from the resources and public resources. And for Sami, I think at the end, so we can able to build a data set called salt, like for example me LLM tokens. And this tokens is consider around 22 million tokens. So 22 million tokens is we are able to collect. So 22 million tokens means it is approximately 2 million sentence. So for LLMs, I think this is very, it is not a very good quantity because very less. But considering the ultra low resource language, that is, I think we need to manage with that. That means we know that okay, we can't increase more the data. It's really challenging for building the data. And for tokenizer, okay, we try to use BP, byte pair encoding. But if you look into the data set, so these are like the different categories of data, like they have collected from administrative, religion, or fiction, or law, news, science, blogs. So there are different categories of data collected. And now the next major challenge was that okay, how to build some LLMs with around 22 million tokens. Because generally if we have seen like in Indic languages and others, actually the for even for fine tuning, even for pre-training, I think it is a number of tokens is very high. Like we used to collect around maybe for ODIA, for example, when we tried for pre-training, we have collected 300 million tokens, and we released the dataset. And for Hindi, like around 1 billion tokens. But here the major challenge was like that with the limited number of tokens, like 22 million tokens, how we can build it. So there actually we try to find different approaches, like how we can do follow different approaches. So there are like we follow different all the available approaches which we could follow, like autoregressive or transfer learning or joint multilingual training. So joint multilingual training, as I said, why we it is important to know the language family, because if you know your language family, sometimes this multilingual training helps. That means you have to know like your language is belongs to which language family and what are the closely or related language. So for example, in this case, for Sami, we have taken other Norwegian languages, like for example Finnish, Norwegian, Hungarian, or Sami. So they are a little bit close. So what we tried, okay, we can take those languages and we can do a multilingual training, or also we can do some kind of next sentence prediction task. So if you look into like the language models, so autoregressive, already you know that here actually the model mostly they predict the next tokens, like where you, if you just provide, for example, you are providing a set of tokens, like, and it will based on your set of tokens, like for example it will provide you a next set of next next tokens. For example, if I'll give you a very simple example, I said I'll feed, like for example, how are, and what will be the next one, you, me, like that. So in autoregressive and transfer learning, mostly actually this is, I think, also quite popular, and it will be useful for low resource languages. Like for example, generally when you have transfer learning, you use pre-train on large on label text, and then you can fine tune for a downstream task. I think that is most of the people follow. For example, like like for example, there is two concepts like pre-training and fine-tuning. And in pre-training, generally we don't need any labeled data. We only need unlabeled data. That means data doesn't have associated with any kind of category or any kind of label. So assume, like for example, you just take the data from wiki. So those data are like unlabeled data, but you take those data and you build, you pre-train the data and build a model. But that models will be like more general model, like then you take that model and you do fine tuning. And when you do the fine tuning, maybe you can means either, like for example, if you are using you can use some instruction set format, or you can, based on your task, you can build a task specific data you can collect, and or you build or you do a fine tuning. And for example, also like in a pre-training, people just take any base model, like which is like uh, base model, like which can contain data from different languages. And also you can do a continuous pre-training, like for example, you can add your language data and you can also continue. So that is also possible. So that is also like which we try to do in a joint multilingual training. So and next sentence prediction is like you just given two sentence, like you just try to predict whether the second sentence is logically follow the first or not. So that is there. But mostly in if you look into the language models approach, like for example, when they are doing some training, so mostly they are trying to follow some one of this approach. But like nowadays it will be like many others are there also. People are doing RLHF, or now many new or diffusion based approach. So many approaches are keep on coming and people are trying. But I think when we tried, I think we said that okay, let's try with this and see how the outcomes are there. So for that, actually we have the experimental setup. Like if you look into, these are the models like D1, D2, D3, D4. And here actually we have the loss. So this is like the perplexity is like most mainly measure like how the quality of the language models. And for uh, for benchmarking, actually we or evaluation, actually we use self blue. So blue is like mostly a evaluation matrix used in popular in machine translations. So here where it just compare with your source and the target, like for your ground truth versus your prediction. Like for example, your what is your ground truth, and what is your model responded, like the output it has produced. And it will just try to match token by token or word wise. It will just match and they will see how good or bad it is. And also actually here we used another blue track, which is mainly used for question answering context data set. So these two actually we try to evaluate. And before that, actually maybe I'll tell a little bit about the model setup. That one will really helpful to understand like how what these setups are there exactly. So if you look into mostly this D1 to D4 models, actually they are mostly uh, we followed like this Bloom decoder only models. so decoder only model, this is trained in different settings for semi language modeling. So what we did, like for example, in D1, so D1 is a yeah, so this part is a bit needs to focus. Like for example, in D1, what we did, like a sami only model pre-trained on Finnish. So and achieving low loss and good diversity. So here actually we didn't we this is actually here we didn't we only use this Finnish as a pre-trained model. Like for example, the model is a pre-trained on Finnish. And then okay, we can we use this Sami language. And so this is like a kind of a continuous pre-training. That means the base model is finished, and top of that actually we continually training with a SAMI. SAMI means the lang 22 million tokens which we collected. And the second model is SAMI only model trained from the scratch. So that means this model actually we have not used any other language. So this is whatever the data collected for SAMI, actually that is used in D2 setting. And in D3 setting is the multilingual model. So multilingual model is we have taken a multilingual models which contains Sami, Finnish, Norwegian with a Finnish pre-training. And this also doesn't have any good performance. And the first last model, or we call it like the D4, it is the fully multilingual model, so which is contains Sami, Finnish, Norwegian. So this D4 model, I think it is the if you look into, this was the got the around the best score. So score means we have calculated the C loss, perplexity, cell blue. So we have calculated like all those scores individually, and where we are and we are just comparing with it. So if you look into actually these setups, actually we didn't all at once. Like for example, we started with like for example D1. Like for example, we say that okay, can it be possible like we take a Finnish model as a pre-trained models, and we continue Sami continuous pre-training, and whether what will be the score. Then okay, we found okay it is not very good. Then okay, we can took the second like a D2 approach. Like we said okay, maybe can it be possible we just take only Sami, whatever the data we collected, and build a model, and whether it can work. So that also didn't work much. Then okay, we said that okay, multilingual model. Like for example, if we take a, for example, in the first case we take a pretend model which is used only Finnish data. But next we said that okay, can we take a pre-trained models which has multilingual data, Sami, Finnish, Norwegian, and also we can continue pre-training with Sami, how it is works. Or maybe we can take a fully multilingual model, and we can see that okay, if we include all, whether it can able to work better. So that is like a just different approaches we tried. And the main evaluation is like with a human evaluation, because these are automatic scores, and for such a low amount of data, it is actually really difficult to evaluation, because you won't get any good benchmarks available publicly which will dedicately for Sami, which you can evaluate it. So that's the reason like the as I said, like benchmark is one of the major challenges. And okay, how about the data? Like for example, the data, I think already the data is released, but if anybody is interested, okay, he can send a request and you can get it. It is with Professor Dilip. I think they maintain this page. But this is, I think, the LLMs for Sami language, the first LLMs. And people are also like find interesting, and now they are also investigating like how to increase the data set, and so that they can build good models. And they have like potentially, I mean, different use cases or functionalities which can be useful for this data. So it can be like used for some kind of plagiarism detector, or it can be also used for named entity recognition, or these models can be adapted for some specific domains also, like legal, medical, or historical context. But for that, actually somebody has to also build more instruction set which can be used for fine tuning of this model. So this is, I think, one use case, I think, where we really struggle also, like because uh, adding the number of data is not very easy to get, and the validation process also take time, because some linguist has to validate all the data. But what we found is like it was found that pre-training with semantically similar similar language positively contributes to the LLM training. So if you look into the best performance what we get using a fully multilingual model, that means when we are doing a fully multilingual model with Sami, Finnish, Norwegian, actually then we are getting uh, good performance. So which is like say that okay, if you one thing you learned, like for example when you have your language have very limited amount of data, then you just search around other languages, or you find out other languages where those can be helpful, like how they can help to where there is a concept called like languages, the similar languages help to learn. So that is the case. Like for example, if you find your similar languages, you can also consider or take the data and you can do some multilingual training. And also we found like the decoder only model perform better than this sequence to sequence model even when the training data is very limited. And I think this is the website, if somebody is interested can go and check. So I think there is be uh, most of the work, like some of the use cases what we did. And next I think what we are doing, like for example some of the ongoing work I will highlight, and maybe we can take some questions. uh, Maybe I'll try to take 10 minutes for some question answer. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so this is like as I said, this will be a two use cases mostly for LLMs, where how you can really build, where one I have shown, like for example for Odia and for Sami also, like with limited amount of data how you can build it. And what we are doing now, for example, although we did many of the data set as I said, but what we're trying doing nowadays. So nowadays if you look into, we are also trying to building resources and building some kind of technology now building in OCR. Like for example, we are one of the issues we found, like of the digitizing the Odia script. So and here actually why we are more interested, because we found that okay, this whatever the challenge is there, it can also be solved through this multimodal LLMs. So because earlier we are only using these OCR based technologies, where you have some kind of text sorry, for example, you have some kind of images. You can just extract the text using OCR, and OCR doesn't have much intelligence. So for example, it can only extract the text. But when we are talking about these LLMs, actually they are also intelligent to, it can also identify some of the issues, and also they are also able to fix those. So we said okay, why we cannot use these multimodal LLMs. But this OCR, why it matters, because if you are using this OCR or this multimodal based LLMs, it will be really helpful for digitizing your content. For example, many contents are there in the book. For example, if you look into searching for example books, sorry, searching this particular information or books. So one of the issue what we found is that actually many data are there, either it is in some image or in some PDF format, but we cannot extract those data, and without extraction actually we cannot search. And this is I think similar for other languages also. For example, many books are available, and if you have some kind of technologies like OCR or multimodal LLMs, then directly you can extract those data, and those data you can use for building any other technology. So that one will be uh, for data preparation, that is I think more useful. And why ODI is matter, so if you look into like ODI, like it is like one of the like low resource Indic languages, and they are actually very large volumes of ODI literature actually remains. uh, okay, we are that will be either those are like in form of some palm leaf manuscript, like or maybe some historical archives, some printed books, newspaper, or handwritten text, and those are actually really they are actually real. The challenge is like how we can extract it. For example, here if you look into the example, like where I was trying with some recent model, like whether how it can be how it can extract with the original text. So all this, like the marks in red, actually those are wrong. Like for example, when many people claims that okay, our OCR can model 90% or 60%, so you can go and try it. For example, like when we tried similar things, actually it is really struggles, and already we have seen, because this OCR tools really struggles with this complex ligatures or diatrics around script forms or handwritten variation. So these are actually really challenging, and they are also they are actually lacks of OCR limit, the digital preservation, searchability, already I explained, or NLP data creation. So these are actually really some of the limits of OCR, and they are actually more we are interested on building these multimodal LLMs, because the ODI script, I think really it is a very lot of challenges involved. So if you look into this ODI script, I think it is quite old, like for example 1500 years old, and it will be mostly derived from the Kalinga or Brahmi script. And anyway, this number is much more, like maybe around 50 millions spoken. And if you look into, still I think it is underrepresented in OCR research, because still we don't have very good OCR tools available in ODI which can extract this, because the data are in this format. Like for example, uh, this is I think a palm script. So if you pass this kind of images to a OCR, I think really it struggles. Or maybe in earlier days people also used to write like this. Maybe this is in some kind of uh, presentation for presentable or presentable form, they used to follow this, or maybe books are in this format. So if you look into like a old ODI data, I think these are in this format. I think none of this available OCR or this LLMs is able to extract this kind of content. So we say that okay, what happens when centuries of literature remains invisible to AI? So what's the point? Like for example, if we cannot extract these contents, so they will be like as remain like only in some PDF or in some image form. So can we build some kind of technologies to extract this data? Then only you can search or you can understand, because for example we don't know what is means written here. Maybe few people can understand this kind of scripts. So that actually one of the motivation why we tried. So this is like a, one of the framework we built. So where we start with the data collection, like we are trying to collect the data from different sources, different newspaper or handwritten or very old uh, historical images or PDFs. And here actually what we are trying to build, actually after this, whether we can build some kind of OCR or maybe some multimodal LLMs, and we can convert those to some Unicode conversion, and then we can build some kind of once the data is available, then we can build different applications out of the data. And this is I think a going under a like a open source project, and already we have released a benchmark data we have already released, and many data we have already collected. And this is like already I think we are working on releasing a indic OCR benchmark data. Initially we are considering 5 languages, like we have collected data from Odia, we have collected data from Malayalam. Now I think we are also collecting in Bengali and Gujarati. So like this, okay, we are collecting. Okay, the idea is like that. Okay, can we release a at least initially we can start with providing a benchmark data set, and then people also, and also we can try to add more data to build some this multimodal LLMs. For multimodal LLMs, initially we did some of the initial experiment. I tried some initial experiment. So what we find, like this multimodal LLMs, they have some more potential. One of the potential is like that they can combine image understanding and for language reasoning, which is not the case of typical OCR, and they have better contextual correction than classical OCR. So in multimodal also they can extract the text, and also they can correct it. Like if you ask them, okay, you extract the text and now find out the issues and you can fix it, so they can do it. And they can handle the degraded scans better. They can also learn the script semantically jointly and improve the Unicode reconstruction. So this multimodal LLMs actually a lot more advantage as compared to typical OCR. So and as it is LLMs, I think this one will be the same models can have multiple applications. So that actually there, but how to do that? So for example, we don't have a lot of data which directly we can do a pre-training model. So some of the initial experimentation I tried, for example, I start with a Quen 2.5 vision language model just to see that okay how it works with a fine-tuned OCR. So if you look into the data set, actually the data set, as I said, some of the data already we have released. Like for example, we make it as ODI Lipi OCR data set. So this is like a this is just a benchmark data set, and also we collected some data set for training. So this data set actually benchmark data set is collected using just taken some old images and manually annotated those into ODI. And already we have for that, actually already we have a what you can call, already we have a platform we have designed. So I think uh, I am not sure if my screen is visible. Yeah, but for example, like you can see like how the data we are collecting through this framework. So this is very easy. Like for example, if you just process the put the image, then it can annotate extract the text. So this is, I think we have used initially we tried with the Gemini integrated, and then we also integrated a spell checker. So if we look into like uh, they just this spell checker can highlight you like what are the incorrect or mistakes are there in the ODR data, and you can correct it. And then finally you can save into CSV. And so in this format, actually you can prepare lot of training data. And for evaluation data, anyway, that we already did using manually. But this one will be really helpful. For example, it not only ODI, you can choose from your language, for example, in your language. And this is actually already hosted. We hosted the platform, I think, in AWS. And also you can generate some synthetic data also here. Like for example, if you provide some text and ask the model to generate some synthetic data, it will generate for you. So that is like some of the work for data set and preparation. And initially, like as I said, I tried with some fine tuning model. Like if you look into, I tried just within handwritten, like how it performs. So this is just a fine-tuned model for OCR Quen 2.5 VLM. So this is, I think, the training and evaluation details. So it performs. So for example, if you look into, this is the input image, and this is the ground truth, and this is the prediction. And the green mark means it is already it will be like maybe actual match, like for example ground truth versus the prediction. And these are like a partial match, like for example this orange color. So this one will be mostly for working for small handwritten text. But our job is like not only the small handwritten text, but also we try to for long paragraphs. So for long paragraphs, actually we also tried with a different model. So next, actually I tried with a Quen 2.5, but this time I try to include some long paragraph in training, and also some synthetic data. And if you look into, I think this will be like the original image, and this will be the ground truth, and this is the prediction. So still it is able to for long paragraph also it is able to understand, but still the performance is not so accurate. So as we said that, okay, I can say for long paragraph maybe it is around 60-65%, and our target is, I think, more than 90%. But this is like we trained with around 58K ODI images, and also we build some synthetic data, including some synthetic data, and we evaluated with our benchmark. So this is like some of the initial work on fine tuning we are doing, but now we are more interested for doing a good multimodal LLMs, maybe we from scratch, where we can include different indic models. But that is, I think, still ongoing activity. Um, but yeah, if anybody is interested or want to contribute or join, or if you want to know exactly you can how you can build in your language, feel free. uh, uh, I think we have coming closely to the end. But what we found, like for example, this domain knowledge, like uh, some of the key messages from the presentation, what we found, this domain knowledge, as I said, it's crucial for building LLMs that accurately understand the context. Like as I mentioned, like how we build the domain knowledge for domain knowledge instruction set for ODI. And for this training this LLMs for ultra resource language, I think it's really highly challenging, but like you can leveraging semantically related language, so that can also be beneficial. And the key point I want to highlight is about the community effort, because that plays a vital role in preserving and advancing the slow and ultra resource languages. Because if you've seen all this data set what we are doing, I think many volunteers are there, and also many researchers and interns are there working with us, because this is like one person, it is not one person jobs. And as I said, like we have a good community, and where open source community where people are coming and joining, and they are learning, and also whatever the knowledge we have gained over the period of time, we are also sharing and guiding them, and also we are helping, like whatever we learned for our language, if it can be useful, they can also get that benefit. And also like we can also learn from uh, their language. So I think it will be in a mutual benefit way. So I think yeah, I think we have come to an end. Maybe I can keep some time for question answering. So is that fine, Professor Das?
Yes, any questions from your side? Because Santi sir has given many clue how to start the research, and you have also chances there to join to them, because lot of ongoing work also there with him. So you can try for your language also, like he's doing for the ODI. So you can also try those things in your language also, because many of the persons are from Nepal and this African continent. As I told that from 18 countries students have joined. So if anyone is interested, you can directly contact to Santi sir. Okay, that odiagn.ai.org, that can contact on that one. Fine.
Yeah,
Or
you can.
if you are
Yeah,
going,
yeah, can
if you are
contact me.
going to type only Shantipriya Parida, automatically all the information you will get, all the contact number, everything you will get. So not you can remember anything. Only remember the resource person name. Okay. If anyone interested, you can join to him. So any
Yeah,
questions from
and if
your
you
side?
have any question,
You can
yeah, either you
unmute
can
yourself.
raise hand there,
You can unmute yourself. I have already given the option. You can unmute yourself and ask the question, if any.
or you can also chat it, like in I can paste in chat if you have any question. But yeah, it will be, I hope some of the work I am able to cover because it is a lot of research we are doing, but I hope it will be
So one question is
helpful to
there,
somebody.
or that is the answer. Okay. Answer question number. Fine.
Yeah, I think I could see some answers, but
and recording
yeah,
will be
no
given
problem.
to you. Okay, later also you can go through this videos. Okay, that is going to be uploaded today only. So at least the link is going to be shared with you. Okay, at any point of time you can contact, because from many institute students are working with him and Dr. Shantipriya Parida, like from Bhubaneswar also, XMB, Silicon, like that. So from KIT also, if anyone wants to join, you can join with him. I am also working with him with Shanti sir. Okay. So anyway, I think no questions are there. Then you can stop here. Your next session will be started at 3 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay. Thank you all
Thank
for
you,
joining.
Sandeep.
And
Bye bye.
okay.